Okay, hello and welcome to the comprehensive design review of Theros Beyond Death. We did one of these for Throne of Eldraine, and we are getting this in just under the deadline as Ikoria is releasing in, I think, in literally 2 days. But I definitely did want to get this in. I have brought back with me Trevor, as well as our mutual friend Tommy, who we invoked several times in the last briefing. So it's good to have him. If you guys could introduce yourself, starting with Trevor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Trevor Cashmore, amateur game designer, educator, and big fan of Magic the Gathering. I've joined this before, and it was an absolutely wonderful time. And I'm excited to try it again, bigger and better, and also smaller than ever.
Yes. Yes. And Tommy.
I'm Tommy Acapinti. I'm an amateur game designer as well, also an educator. I have been playing for Magic a long time, and I'm excited to talk about all of this nitty-gritty details about this set.
And I'm Carl Duzette, also known as Zerapath in the custom magic community. I've been in the custom magic community for a really long time, like a really long time. Done a lot of my own custom sets and lots of my own card designs, and I'm also an amateur game designer. And this is just something I really enjoy doing with Throne of Eldraine, and I just love talking about Magic card design. So that's who I am. That's who we are. And today we're talking about Theros Beyond Death. And so why are we doing a design review at the very end of a format? Well, one thing I noticed, anytime a new set comes out, it seems like all the content is kind of buried at the beginning when everyone is trying to rush to get their set reviews out, their limited reviews. And one content that I always find missing is a design review. We get a lot of talk from Mark Rosewater, from official Wizards employees, about how they designed the set and how they think it works, but less from people outside of Wizards of the Coast really examining, the design principles behind the set itself. And so that's why I wanted to do this. It is long, but that's because there's so much to talk about and just so much to dig into. The way we're going to do this, we're going to start kind of big picture, looking at what Wizards wanted to do with this set, and then getting down into the nitty gritty, all the way down to individual card designs. And so hopefully this will prove interesting to you. I think if you like reading the Making Magic articles, if you enjoy, reading Blogatog, if you just kind of like seeing how the sausage is made, I guess, with Magic the Gathering, this should be interesting. We should all hopefully learn something about game design generally, but also Magic design. So let's talk about Theros Beyond Death. Theros Beyond Death is a return set. We're returning to the plane of Theros, an Enchantment Matters set with gods, devotion, and top-down Greek mythology. And so this time it is also that. It is top-down Greek mythology, enchantments matter, but this time with the twist of the underworld, which is a major trope in Greek mythology, and enough of a twist that it merits kind of a new perspective on the return. So I want to start off by asking, when you guys first heard that we were returning to Theros, what was your reaction and what were you kind of hoping for?
So I was very excited as a player because Elspeth is a character that hits on a lot of different axes for me. Her card from the original Theros is one of my favorites, and it was exciting to see the story sort of pick up there, because it was no secret that this set was going to come from all the way back in the original Theros. And sort of going back to my grumpy old man self, I would say, like, in my mind, I think the original Theros, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but I think that was the last truly great Magic set in my mind.
That's a take.
So I was definitely very excited by what they were going to do with this sort of twist, particularly combining it with the death element, because I'm a big graveyard player. So I was very excited by this set from those points of view.
It is one of the few sets that have a great story hook that picks up from a previous set, right? I don't know how often they're able to do that. And what about you, Trevor? What was your initial reaction?
I really enjoyed Theros as well. I thought it was definitely, little tiny things I would change and improve, some bigger things that change and improve. For the most part, I really really liked Theros. I was really excited to see it come back. It was very interesting to theorize on how it would come back before we do anything. Like, oh well, they're definitely bringing back devotion, but what if? Or how are they going to do the enchantment theme? What's going to be different about that? All that kind of stuff. Personally, my friends would know that I am a complete fanatic about artifacts and enchantments and other non-creature stuff. I just really, really like when the game cares about those kinds of things, and I find those mechanics interesting to design around or to explore around. So I was really excited to see how they would reapproach the idea of an enchantment set with their new, more practiced and more experienced design principles, since they'd already done it once and they learned from that. And Theros Beyond Death. I was really excited to see how they approached the underworld and all that kind of stuff. It was a really rich opportunity, and I think it had a lot of potential.
Yeah. I would echo also just kind of being excited with their. Well, the thing I didn't like about the original Theros was, and we'll get more into that. We'll talk about original Theros a bit more. I didn't quite like how they did enchantments, and I was like, okay, well, they can fix that this time. It can feel more mechanically cohesive and consistent. And I kind of liked the flavor of original Theros. Originally, I was like, really, they're just gonna top down Greek mythology, and it's just gonna feel like copycats of that. But they did enough to make it feel like its own world that I was really down for the aesthetics. I was down for the flavor, and I did know they'd left a bunch of very interesting plot stuff to resolve. And so it felt like, kind of a justified return. But what do we think about Theros Beyond Death now? And this is just, the short, hot take reaction, because we're obviously going to delve more into this. How do you guys feel about the set now? We've seen all the cards, we've played with them. How do you feel about Theros Beyond Death?
I find this to be one of the most boring Magic sets overall. There really just is not a lot to be excited about in this set to me. That was my overall take. And I think we'll talk later about the fact that they had a lot of ambitious ideas and then they decided to do none of them.
I think excitement is a big topic in regards to this set. What about you, Trevor?
I would echo some of that sentiment. I think with Theros, I think there's a lot of I would say individually interesting ideas and some interesting cards and some, smaller scale experimentation and intrigue. But in terms of an actual overall set, I don't really look over the ideas and mechanics and overall presentation and go, yes, that is a really exciting and cool set. Yeah, to stay relatively general, I don't look at the set and see anything that looks like Bestow. And
Yeah.
Devotion was really interesting the first time and really new, except it wasn't. But especially now, it's not, right? Like Devotion
Yeah.
is a beloved favorite mechanic, which unfortunately means that the next time you visit it, people go, "Oh, good," instead of "Oh, yay," right? Because they know it's coming back, and they've already poured all that love into it the first time, and so now it's just kind of like, well, of course you're giving it back to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, it's very possible that in Ikoria, cycling is actually the best mechanic in the set, but no one is like, oh my gosh, did you see Ikoria, the new set? It has cycling. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the
Right.
exciting thing about Ikoria. And no one is saying, wow, the really splashy thing about Theros Beyond Death is that they're doing devotion slightly better than before.
And even that's kind of arguable, yeah.
Mm.
Like if you had a new set and they said, "Oh, Storm's coming back," like people would go, "Wow, Storm is coming back," but I don't think that would engender the same kind of excitement that an actual new mechanic could. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's always a difficulty. I think I would agree with Tommy's assessment that it had what I would call like behind the scenes ambition. where you could really tell that they were trying some very different stuff, and the final product doesn't look that interesting. But you can kind of feel that there was a lot of effort behind it, and I think put into it, from what I can tell. And like in some cases, that effort didn't go anywhere, but in other cases, it did. And I would say it's kind of like when you see a magic trick. Sometimes the easiest looking tricks are the ones that are hardest to pull off. They look kind
Yeah.
of smooth. And so a boring trick can actually be, to the person who's really scrutinizing it, the really exciting trick. But that's not the stuff that ever wows an audience until they actually like unconsciously see how smooth and how it doesn't, how it's an incongruous thing, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, my overall reaction. I've done a lot of drafts of this on Magic Arena. Um, the thing I've come away with that I've been most impressed by is just how all of the set seems to work together as like a well-oiled machine. It kind of looks like I'm looking at an enormous jigsaw puzzle that they have already put together, and I look at it and I'm like, wow, I can see how this was put together, but I'm not like, this is awesome. I'm like, oh, they did it. Just the way all the mechanics work together. I appreciate that from a design perspective, but I just wonder how many players are thrilled by that, or when they're designing it, where are they expecting to hook players? Is it purely the setting? Is it purely the fact we're returning to Theros? Is it the story? I can't imagine that it's just the mechanics here.